What's up, everybody? I'm DJ Ryan Matthews, and this is my Ultimate Virtual DJ Settings Masterclass. If you've ever opened up the settings in Virtual DJ, you've probably seen a bunch of options with a ton of names that really don't explain what they do. And a lot of DJs, because of this, they just kind of leave everything at the default setting, or they go and change things around without really understanding how they work. And that's exactly why I'm making this series. So over the next several episodes, we're going to go through every single setting in Virtual DJ. I'll explain what each one does, show you how it works, and show you how I have mine set up as a professional DJ that's been doing this for 5+ years. In this first episode, we're going to be going over playback and hot cue settings. So let's get it. All right, so first of all, if you haven't opened up the settings menu yet, it's going to be right up here in the top right corner. And then I like to head on over here to controls. So if you click options, go to controls, you're going to see this menu pop up here. And so this is where we're going to begin, under the controls section. So the first setting that we're going to talk about is play mode. This setting changes what happens when you press the play button after a track is already playing. There are two options. First, we have play stutter. With play stutter enabled, if you press play while the song is already playing, Virtual DJ instantly jumps back to the current cue point and starts playing again. So this creates that classic stutter effect that old CDJ players were known for. All right, so I'm going to select that option there. And then I'm going to go over to audio so that I can apply these settings. And then I'm going to go to my song here. And I'm going to press play. All right, so that was an example of stutter play. The other option is play pause. And this is how most modern DJ players work. You press play once and the track starts. Press play again, the track pauses exactly where it was. So let's show you an example of that. So my recommendation for wedding DJs, mobile DJs, and club DJs is to keep it on play pause. It behaves like most modern pioneer players, and it's what most DJs are already used to. The next option is cue mode, and this is probably one of the most misunderstood settings in Virtual DJ. But once you understand it, it completely changes how your cue buttons behave. So there are three modes. You have cue, cue hold, and cup. So let's start with the default. This works almost exactly like a pioneer CDJ. If the track is stopped, hold the cue button and the track plays temporarily from where the cue point is. As soon as you release the button, it instantly jumps back to that cue point and waits for you. If the track is already playing, pressing cue immediately stops playback and returns the track to the cue point, ready to play again. So let's show you an example of that. I'm going to press my cue button here. Notice how every time I let go of the cue button, it jumps right back to where I set the cue. So if I were to press the cue here, you can see my cues lined up right there, and I hold the cue button. It jumps right back to the point where I went and set the cue to begin with. So for almost every DJ, I recommend leaving this on cue mode, mainly because it matches the function of professional pioneer CDJs. And so it makes it a lot easier for you to transfer from controller to professional club gear. All right, so the next option is cue hold, and this works almost exactly like a regular cue, except for one important difference. If you keep holding the cue button for about 2 seconds, Virtual DJ assumes you want to continue playing this track, so when you release the button, instead of jumping back to the cue point, the song simply keeps playing from where it is. So let's show you an example. All right, so I got my cue loaded up, and I'm just going to press it and release it real quick here. And notice how it jumped right back to where it was, just like cue. But if I hold it down for more than 2 seconds, then it's going to go ahead and just continue playing the track. So let's do that. And so I just released the cue button right here. And you can see that the track is going to continue. All right. So once again, we hold down the cue button. I let go of it real quick. As you can see, it jumped right back to the cue setting, just like cue mode. But if I hold the cue button down this time for more than 2 seconds, you'll notice that the track just keeps on playing. All right, so I've let go of the cue. And you can see it's still playing. So my recommendation, I rarely use this mode. I know a lot of professional DJs out there that do, but for me, I just got used to using cue mode. All right, so this last option is cue cup. And cup stands for cue play. So instead of the track playing while you're holding the cue button, the track starts when you release the cue button. Press cue again, and the track stops and instantly returns to the cue point setting. So let's show you guys an example. I'm gonna press cue, and right away, it jumped right back to where it was. And so if I press cue again, you can see I'm holding it and it stops. But if I let it go, it plays. And then if I hit it again, it goes right back to the cue point. Let's go. You get the picture. Yeah, I never use that setting. I don't know a single DJ who does, actually. All right, so that's cue cup. But again, I just leave mine on cue mode. All right, so next up we got hot cue mode. This setting changes what happens when you press an existing hot cue. There are two options. You got play and stutter. With play selected, pressing a hot cue instantly jumps to that section. So let's give you an example. I have my hot cue right here. And if I press play, it instantly jumps to that section and it starts playing. And this is how most DJs use hot cues. So with stutter selected, pressing the hot cue immediately brings it right back to that starting position repeatedly. So let's show you an example of that. I'm going to press the hot cue here and I let it go. As you can see, it jumped right back. So it didn't continue playing. So I'm going to hold it down. And when I let it go, it just goes right back to where it started. And so, again, my recommendation is just to leave it on play as it is. That's how most DJs use hot cues. All right, so the next option is the update hot cue on cue combo. And this is actually kind of a clever little shortcut. So normally, when you press a hot cue, it takes you right to that hot cue. But if you're holding the cue button and you press a hot cue, it doesn't just jump to it. Instead, VirtualDJ updates your hot cue to the current cue position. So no menus, no mouse. It's kind of a neat little shortcut. So just hold the cue button and press hot cue. All right, so let's show you an example of that. So I'm going to move my slider here so that I can set a new hot cue. And I'm going to use the trick that we just talked about. So first of all, I'm going to hold down Option and 2 for cue. So you can see that that's set a new cue point right there. And then for another hot cue, I'm still holding down the cue button. I'm going to click pad 2. All right. And as you can see, cue 2 just popped up right here. So it set a new hot cue on my pad right there when I didn't have one before. So let me show you that again. I'm going to move the slider here. I'm going to set a cue point. I'm going to use my keypad here. I'm going to press Option 2. And then you can see it just set a cue point for me there. And then I'm going to click D for this pad right here. And so you can see it just set another hot cue under my hot cues sections under cue number 3. So I just leave this option enabled. It's just a little shortcut that I use sometimes just to set another cue point if I'm already mixing. So the next section here is going to be hot cue saves loop. So this setting is actually a pretty big deal if you use a lot of saved loops. So without this option enabled, if you click no here, saving a hot cue only remembers the location of that cue. But when it's turned on, VirtualDJ remembers where the hot cue is, the size of the active loop, and automatically reactivates that loop anytime you trigger that hot cue again. So let me show you guys how that works. All right, so we're going to start off at the same cue point here. I'm going to activate a loop before the track has started. So as you can see, I got my button right here, 4-bar loop. It's going to highlight the section So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 bars. That's going to be looping. I'll press play right here. Now watch what happens when I click the hotkey pad. As you can see, this pad shows Q4 right here where Q3 was, and it's in yellow. It didn't just save this Q point, it also saved the loop as well. So if you leave that setting on, what it's going to do is every time you save a hot cue and you have a loop going at the same time, it's not just going to save the cue, it's also going to save the loop as a whole. So my recommendation is if you use saved loops, absolutely use this setting and leave it enabled. And that's it for the hot cue and playback settings inside VirtualDJ. These are some of the most important settings that you need to know. And getting them right can really improve your workflow. In the next episode, we're going to be diving into loop settings, including the loop back mode, loop auto mode, loop defaults, beat jump, and several other settings that even experienced VirtualDJ users have a hard time understanding. If you're enjoying this series, make sure that you click the subscribe button. By the end of the series, you're going to understand every single setting inside VirtualDJ. So I appreciate you watching. Catch you on the next one.